my talk? I use that one. I have to use my hands to talk. I can't keep it.
That's fine too. Do you all want to something like this?
So it works? We're good?
What's it, bro? That's me letting the week go. Try it, it feels great. It's like a great relief. Just a little sigh, a little breath in. The preschooler love to do it with me. Maybe not you guys.
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom. I told everybody to come in and cozy in, right? It's good to sit in a sanctuary and not get right down to business always.
It is, indeed. My favorite is always actually Saturday morning when the B'nai Mitzvah family, occasionally about 5 minutes before services, as we're kind of getting our stuff set, suddenly the room, which has like 150 people, including kids, just goes whoosh. And we look at each other and we're like,
happens.
Do we start the service early or
It's
do
weird
we?
when that happens.
Yeah,
I agree. It's strange.
yeah. But I think we're almost ready to begin. So a few announcements before we officially begin. The first is just logistical announcements. So hopefully everyone grabbed their prayer book on their way in. And our usher this evening is Amy Winkleman, one of our vice presidents. So if you have a question for her, she can point you in the right direction. In the event we need to ever exit quickly from the synagogue, of course, there's the way we came in, but notice there's an emergency exit here, and you can walk through the doors into the back. There's an emergency exit as well. If you need the bathrooms, they're outside to the right. All gender and handicap accessible bathrooms are through the office into the back. We have large print prayer books as you walk in, and hearing assisted devices right in the office to your right. Most importantly, notice and see around you if there's anyone who feels lost, who's not sure where they are on the page. And that way you can lean over toward them and you can direct them where to go. That way we can all be on the same page, both literally and figuratively, and make sure to be praying together. And so we're going to begin our Shabbat service with the words, Shalom Aleichem. You can find that on page 24.
Indeed. Shabbat shalom to both of our rabbis here to my left. I don't want to steal Rabbi Katz's thunder as he introduces in another few moments Rabbi Golan Ben Chorin. So just hi. Shabbat shalom, Baruch haba. Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Asharet, Malachei Elyon, Melech Malachei Amlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Boachem l'shalom, Malachei Ashalom, Malachei Elyon, Melech Malachei Amlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Barichuni l'shalom, Malachei Ashalom, לשלום, צאתכם לשלום, מלאכי השלום, מלאכי עליון, מי מלך מלכי המלכים, הקדוש ברוך הוא שלום עליכם, שלום עליכם, מלכי השרת, מלאכי עליון, מי מלך מלכי המלכים, הקדוש, 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 הקדוש ברוך הוא.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
So I want to explain why tonight is just a really exciting Shabbat. So we are welcoming back to our bima from only a few months ago, actually, Rabbi Golan Ben Chorin from Haifa. And when Rabbi Ben Chorin came to our congregation, he told us about this amazing community that he is working with in Tbilisi, Georgia. Georgia, the country, not the state. And it completely inspired us so that Cantor Greenberg just jumped at the opportunity to coordinate a real partnership with this community in Tbilisi. You're going to learn more about it tonight, but just kind of as a quick preview, the community is really the first liberal reform community in the country, in the history of Georgia. And we are working with a group of students who for the first time ever as adults are going to become B'nai Mitzvah. And Cantor Greenberg and Ronnie Pressman and a whole bunch of others in this community have been really involved. And so when Rabbi Ben Chorin said that he was going to be in New York City this weekend, we jumped at the opportunity to involve more of our congregation. We're going to have a delegation that goes over there for Shavuot when the adult B'nai Mitzvah is happening. But we know that not everyone can actually get on a plane and go with Cantor Greenberg. And so for those who can't, learning about it, engaging with it, our students, for example, in 6th grade on Sunday morning are gonna make talitot for the community. You guys have all had a call out for some ritual garments that you can bring and ritual objects that we can share with those students in Tbilisi. And so now you will be a part of this really amazing partnership that our community has, that on a whim, after hearing an inspirational talk only a few months ago, decided to enact. So,
Or divine intervention.
Or divine intervention. So we're not only pleased, Rabbi Ben Chorin, that you are here and that you're going to be sharing some of your wisdom during services, we're also pleased that we have 2 students who are becoming Benot Mitzvah tomorrow in 2 separate services. So I want to call Avery and Olive up to be joined by their families as we prepare to usher in Shabbat with the lighting of the candles.
As these Shabbat candles give light to all who behold them, so may we, by our lives, give light to all who behold us. As their brightness reminds us of the generations of Israel who have kindled light, so may we, in our own day, be among those who kindle light.
Now we need a kindler. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kirshad b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lehadlik ner Shel Shabbat.
O source of light and truth, creator of the eternal law of goodness, help us to find knowledge by which to live. Lead us to take the words we shall speak into our hearts and our lives. Bless all who enter this sanctuary in need, all who bring the offerings of their hearts. May our worship lead us to acts of kindness, peace, and love.
Kiddush cup.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, borei peri hagafen.
Amen.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kishanu b'mitzvotav, v'ratzav lanu, v'shabbat kodsho, b'ahava uvratzon, hinhi lanu, zecharon le'maseh, bereshit, ki hu yom tehila, l'mikra'e kodesh, zecher letziat Mitzrayim,
Kivanu v'acharta,
ve'otanu kidashta, michol ha'amim, v'shabbat kodshecha, be'ahava uvratzon, hinhiltanu, Baruch atah Adonai, Mekadesh HaShabbat.
Amen. L'chaim. Sip it up. Chaim.
All right. So we're going to turn to page 20 as we join together in the singing of L'chadodi.
La 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 dodi ya la la ya la 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 likrat kala ya la 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 bnei Shabbat nikabe ya la 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 dodi ya la ya la 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 likrat kala ya la 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 bnei Shabbat B'nei Shabbat nikavela Shamor v'zachor B'dibur echad Ishmianu El hameyuchad Adonai echad Ushmo echad Shemu tiferet Melit techila Ya ilai Ya la 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 Echad oti Ya ilai Ya la 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 Likrat kala Ya la 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 B'nei Shabbat B'nei Shabbat Nikabela Likrat Shabbat Lechu v'nelecha Ki mekor habracha מראש מקדם מסוכה סוף מעשה במחשבה תחילה יאללה יאללה לה 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 לחת אותי אליי יאללה לה 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 לקראת קלה Ya la 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 la, B'nei Shabbat, B'nei Shabbat, Nikabela.
Verse number 5, Hitorari.
Hitorari, Hitorari, Kiva orech, Kumi ori. שיר דברי כבוד אדוני עלייך נגלה יא לה 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 לחת אותי יא לה 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 לקראת קלה יא
Pnei Shabbat,
Pnei Shabbat, Nikavela. Those who are able, we rise up on our feet. Boivi shalom, ateret bala, gam besimcha ubetola, tochemune am segula. Bowi khala, ya ira ira, ya la 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 la, l'chadodi, la ira ira, ya la 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 la, likrat kala, la 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 la, Pnei Shabbat, Pnei Shabbat, nikabe. Ya la 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 la, l'chad odi alay, la 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 la, likrat kala. Ya la 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 la, Pnei Shabbat, Pnei Shabbat, nikabela.
We remain standing, page 28.
Yai, 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 ya ya la la ya la la. Together.
Ya la la, ya la la la, ya la 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 la,
ya la la, ya la la la, ya la ya 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 la ya 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 la 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 la.
Ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la.
Baruchu et Adonai HaMevorach.
Baruch Adonai HaMevorach le'olam va'ed.
Baruch Adonai HaMevorach le'olam va'ed.
We're seated together.
So we've just called each other to pray. Baruchu et Adonai is a call to all of us to come together and really dig down deep into our souls and to pray and to praise and to give thanks. And right after in the service, we have our famous love sandwich. I hope no one's too hungry. But the love sandwich is Ahavat Olam. That's what we say next, which means, God, you have loved us. Then comes the Shema, which is that middle part, the tastiest part. And then the second part of the sandwich, Ve'ahavta, and we shall love God. God loving us, we loving God. In the middle, the Shema, the love sandwich. And so when we reach out across boundaries and borders, and we reach out to a community that is far away and is actually now also in need of support. And I'm talking about the community in Tbilisi, Georgia, which the country itself is going through quite a bit of turmoil. And we say we have love to share. No matter how much love we give away, we never lose anything. It's like fire. You pass it on, it just enhances the world. And I found that loving response right here. It made me feel very much at home, because to do things right away is very Israeli. Right? It's harder to do things that you have to plan for in Israel. But let's get it done yesterday, we're good at that. I found myself inadvertently creating a liberal community in Tbilisi, Georgia. And now I found partners in creating something that is very intentional, which is about sharing the love, the respect, the deep-rootedness of Judaism that says to us, we are united. I will not be talking tonight about politics in Israel, but I had to mention that I'm not talking about that. That would be wrong, just to think as if it doesn't exist. Anyone who wants to, come to me after Kiddush and I'll be happy to talk to you. Not happy, but I will do it and talk to
You'll
you
unhappily
definitely
talk about it.
and give you, but it's the same message. When we need the love sandwich around the world, we need to know that we care about each other. There are progressive, liberal Jews just like you sitting in Israel today wanting that connection. There are progressive, liberal Jews that didn't know they were progressive or liberal in Tbilisi just 8 months ago, because in 2,600 years of Jewish history in Tbilisi, there was never liberal Judaism there. And now for the 8 months that we've been there, it's there. And you can be part of it. So as we turn into the mode of tefillah, of prayer, and we reach out, the love we give and the love we receive, can we make that across the borders all the way to Georgia?
Page 32.
אהבת עולם בית ישראל עמך אהבת תורה ומצוות חוקים ומשפטים אותנו לימדת על כן אדוני אלוהינו בשוכבנו ובקומנו נשיח בחוקיך ונשמח בדברי תורתך ובמצוותיך לעולם ועד. כי הם חיינו ואורך ימינו ואורך ימינו ובהם נגה יומם ולילה יומם ולילה ואהבתך אל תסיר ממנו לעולמים. ברוך אתה אדוני אוהב עמו ישראל.
Page 34.
שמע ישראל אדוני אלוהינו אדוני אחד. ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך. והיו
הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם בשבתך ובביתך ובלכתך בדרך ושוכבך ובקומך וקשרתם לאות על ידיך והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובישר למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם
אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים להיות לכם אלוהים.
אני אדוני אלוהיכם.
אדוני אלוהיכם אמת.
Page 39. Standing on the parted shores of history, we still believe what we were taught before ever we stood at Sinai's foot. that wherever we go, it is eternally Egypt, that there's a better place, a promised land, that the winding way to that promise passes through the wilderness, that there is no way to get from here to there except by joining hands and marching together. Page 40.
Ya ida ila ya ya la la ya ida ida ila ila la 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 ya la 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 ya la la ya ida la ya la la ya la
מי כמוך באלים אדוני?
מי כמוך באלים אדוני מי כמוך נדר בקודש נורא תהילות אוסף אלף נורא תהילות אוסף אלף מלכותך ראו בניך בוקע ים לפני משה ומרים זה אלינו ואמרו זה אלינו ואמרו אדוני מלוך לעולם ועד אדוני מלוך לעולם ועד. One more time, ya ya ida ida ya la la ya ida ida ila ya la 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 ya la la ya ya ida la la ya ida la ya la la ונאמר כי ודאי את יעקב וגאולו מעט חזק ממנו ברוך אתה אדוני גל ישראל.
Page 42, Hashkivenu.
Little lullaby for our hearts. Na 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 na. Na 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 na. השכיבנו אדוני אלוהינו לשלום 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 והעמידנו שומרנו לחיים לחיים לשלום 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 na 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 ברוך אתה אדוני הפורח סוכת שלום עלינו ועל כל עמו ישראל ועל ירושלים.
We're on page 46, and in a moment we're going to pray silently after this opening meditation, either the words on the page or the words of our heart. When we're finished, we can be seated through page 62. We rise together, page 46.
אדוני שפתי תפתח ופי יגיד תהילתך.
if you are still praying your own quiet prayers, keep letting them flow here or in the Zoomiverse or the YouTuberverse. We'll lift up our voices together. Olam chesed yibane, yararai, yarai, yararai, yarai. Olam chesed yibane, yararai, yararai, yarai. Olam chesed yibane, yararai, yarai, yararai, yarai. Olam chesed yibane, yararai, yarai. I must build this world from love. I must build this world from love. Yahidai, yararai, yararai. And you must build this world, and you must build this world from love. Yararai, and if we build this world from love, and if we build this world from love, yararai, then God will build, and God will build this world from love through us. Olam chesed yibane, olam chesed yibane, yararai, olam chesed yibane, yararai,
The opportunity of each time we gather together in prayer for us to offer a prayer for those in need of healing can be found on page 253. And I'll ask you to think of those people that are in your hearts and minds as I look around the room. I'll ask you to add some names as well as they will add some in the chat. Mishaberach avotenu v'imotenu, Avraham, Yitzchak, v'Yaakov, Sarah, Rivka, Rachel, v'Leah, Hu yivarech et hacholim. May the one who blessed our ancestors, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, Sarah, Rebecca, Rachel, and Leah, bless and heal those who are ill. May the Blessed Holy One be filled with compassion for their health to be restored and their strength to be revived. May God swiftly send them a complete renewal of body and spirit. And let us say, Amen. Mishaberach avotenu mekor habracha limotenu. May the source of strength, who bless the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen. Mishaberach imotenu mekor habracha liavotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema. the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen.
I was going to hold the mic, but then I could only say half of what I had to say because one hand would be here. So that's a problem. God has set me free so I can speak. Okay, I hope this thing doesn't fall. Shabbat Shalom. And thank you so much, Ronnie. Because of the Mishaberach that you just led, I could mention a person who's in need of healing in Tbilisi and bring that prayer into this community as well. So you might have heard that I said that I inadvertently started a liberal, progressive congregation in Tbilisi, Georgia. I don't know how often that's happened to you. To me, it's happened a few times in my life, but not exactly this way. But just to start us off on this amazing story, let me explain just a little bit about how it happened, but I'm sure that by the end of the story, you'll be wondering with more questions than you have right now. But this is how it began. 3 Muslims who are originally from Turkey and now live in Berlin donated money to me in Israel in order to buy a Torah scroll for Jews who didn't even know they wanted it in Tbilisi, Georgia. And that's all true. That's how this whole thing began. Of course, there's much more to it, but we'd be here all night if I had to explain each part of that. So just take it, that was the beginning of the story, and I was bringing a Torah scroll from Israel to a synagogue that was created in a building that used to be a warehouse. Not only was it a warehouse, it was given as a punishment to a Baptist bishop whose original church was taken away during the communist period, which was very influential and is very important to our story because during that time in Georgia, there was no religion. So people lost their roots. And this bishop, by the way, I'm terrible at names, but this one I happen to remember because it just rolls off the tongue. It's Bishop Malcha Songulashvili. So I just can't forget that one. So he decided in Georgia to stand up for human rights, for LGBTQ rights, and to bring a voice of liberal values within this context of Georgia that hopefully most of you will be with me there in May, so I won't have to explain it right now. But if you're not, it's really complex. It's a wonderful place with a lot of hardship. But the bishop, who used to be the archbishop, but he had to step down and become only the bishop because of all this fight and courage to stand up against the government and to bring this message of liberal values. So he gets a warehouse and he's told, not only is this your new church now, but you can't build up. Okay, now that's a problem for Christian worship, right? You need the church with the steeple. So he said, fine, I'll dig down. And he does, and he digs down, and then he says, but a church is not enough. I'm going to build within these walls, not only a church, but a mosque and a synagogue under this new roof of his. And when he did so, he was thinking that the mosque and the synagogue would be more symbolic. And when groups came in, he would show, and by the way, he could teach in each one of those 3 spaces, and you'd be hard to argue with him. He is a very knowledgeable and amazing person. So then came the story with the Torah, and I said, I don't bring a Torah to an empty synagogue, right? It's the Torah of life. We need to bring it to Jews. And so he went on a little hunt to find if there are any Jews remaining. Now, we knew there were Jews. It's not true. There used to be 100,000 Jews living in Georgia, and in the 70s and 80s, they left most of them to Israel, some of them to places in Europe and the United States, but they left not under duress. There was nearly no anti-Semitism in the 2,600 years of Jewish history in Georgia. Now, if you're wondering how can there be 2,600 years of Jewish history, it sounds a little iffy, right? Well, they trace their roots all the way back to the Babylonian exile. And if that's true, that's 2,600 years. Now, there is archaeological evidence of Jews there for about 2,000 years. So let's just give them the extra 600 and say, okay. So we started to find Jews who were interested, first of all, building a synagogue with a church and a mosque, not only next door, just beyond the door of the space. And then we said to them also, this is a space where we can celebrate Judaism in a way that if you want to know, come and experience bringing in the Torah. And we did. And that was a story I think I told you already, so I'm not going to repeat that. If you didn't get that, go back and get chapter 1. But I will also tell you that whenever you want. But what I want to do tonight is to share with you a few of these stories. Who are these people? And how come they ended up saying, we want this special kind of Judaism which we've never heard of before? And so I start with Lela Tzetziashvili, who is a Jew, a Georgian Jew. She has been there for centuries with her family. But one of her great-great-great-grandmothers or grandfathers weren't local. Oh, no. So you're not really, you're not full-fledged Georgian Jewry. She always sort of says, I'm very sorry. She apologizes for that. And she goes around Georgia and collects Judaica from synagogues that are being shut down and Jewish stories that are disappearing. She's an art historian and she works in the National Gallery of Georgia. And she collects this Judaica and brings it back to a place where people can see it and appreciate it. Yet there's no Jewish community for her in which she feels a full expression of who she is. Now, don't get me wrong, there are 3 Orthodox congregations active today in Tbilisi. You won't be surprised that 2 of them are Chabad and 1 of them is not. But for whatever reason, it's not the space for her. She felt there was no life energy there. And especially as a woman, this was not her place. So she was collecting, saving, and bringing to life Jewish history, but had no Jewish present. And then we did a Havdalah ceremony with Debbie Friedman, Alea Shalom, with her melody, which has become like, this is the hymn of Judaism or the anthem, the Jewish anthem all over the world. And it was the first time she heard it. And when we did Havdalah in the synagogue, now when you think of the Peace Cathedral, by the way, the church, the synagogue, and the mosque, that's called the Peace Cathedral. So you think of huge spaces. The whole Peace Cathedral might be as big as this one room here, okay? And the people who are building it with love, as you sang tonight. If we build this place with love. They collected stones from villages all around the city of Tbilisi, and with those stones, they started to create within the warehouse a space for the church, a space for the mosque, and for the synagogue. And we went into the synagogue, and it was all dusty because it's being built now. And in May, I'll tell you in a moment what's going to happen. Hopefully by then, it will be a little bit more built. But then it was really beginning. And it was dust all over the place, and some walls in a shape that you could tell. And yet we sang the Havdalah with a guitar and with music that went right to the heart and to the soul. And so I invited her, as we said, maybe by chance and maybe by divine inspiration. And she held the Havdalah candle. And she was shaking. And she said, this is my home. And now she's one of 7 shamashim, 7 people who are lay leaders. There's no community to be led yet. The 7 are the community. But they are people who are saying, but we'll make this happen. Now, that's not exactly what happens. I have been there, luckily enough for me, I've been there now 4 times in the past 8 months. This all started in June. Right? And this has moved so quickly. There's something that's energizing this. And these 7 people stepped up and said, we will be your partners and we will create this together. And when I go there, we have Friday night services and dinner, and we sing and we teach and we learn. And Judaism is growing. And the last time I was there, I said, we're going to have a very special ceremony. On the 27th of May, we're going to have, actually the 26th of May, it's a Friday, we're going to have the official opening of the mosque and the synagogue on the same day. That's the first time I thought we were making history. I don't know of any other mosque and synagogue that were actually dedicated on the same day. So at 1 o'clock, yes, that's a little, you're right. So at 1 o'clock, we're going to have the Juma prayer, which is the central Muslim prayer. It's the Friday afternoon prayer. And whoever wants to go and pray or watch or see or be a part of it is welcome to do so. Then we have to have lunch because everyone gets a little hungry. Then 3 hours of interfaith workshops. Who are going to lead these? Well, from Berlin, Germany, there is a wonderful organization that set all of this in motion, also inadvertently, and it's called the House of One. And the House of One is very similar to the concept in Georgia, except it's in the heart of Berlin, in the Petriplatz, in the central circle of Berlin, right next to the cathedral there. And within it, and this is important, this piece of architectural information, there is a lobby, and out of the lobby, a church, a mosque, and a synagogue. To me, that shows it's a deep expression of interfaith work. Why? The lobby is where we can all gather as human beings. We're all there in the same space. Yet the moment we open our mouth to even tell the story of what it means to be a human being, we already draw from our faith-based communities and with different stories. It might just be nuance, but it's difference, and it's important. So for me, interfaith work on that first level is finding things we have in common, where we can gather together. And that's crucial because without that, there's very little trust. And trust is what we need in order to connect to others. But then comes the second element, which I think is as important. And that is understanding that we have difference and then celebrating difference. So finding commonality is a way to start. But finding the difference and celebrating, that's the way we grow. And so the House of One is sending a team over to Tbilisi to lead one of the interfaith workshops. And from Haifa, a postdoc who is now involved in the Laboratory of Religious Studies in Haifa University, she's going to come over from Israel and lead the second workshop. And in between, there's going to be maybe the most important workshop, which is going to be led by Cantor Meredith and the choir of the church. And they're going to do a musical workshop so that we can actually sing together. And so that'll bring us very close to Friday evening when the sun goes down and Shabbat comes in. And then we will dedicate the synagogue. Then, of course, you got to eat because we're Jews and we have to celebrate. And we'll have a Shabbos dinner. And the next day is when we're going to make history again. And in order to explain about that, I'm going to introduce yet another person. Her name is Ilona. And I just met her this last time I was there. And she tells me the story. Her father's Jewish, her mother's not. And they grew up in a home that was completely secular because that's what there was and that's what they knew. And somehow at the age of 10, she gets this urge to keep kosher at home. And they do. By the way, I was there on a Shabbat, and you go into the kitchen, it's unbelievable. In the middle of Tbilisi, there's 2 sinks and there's 2 refrigerators, and there's kosher home. They even had kosher chicken. I don't know where they got kosher chicken from. It was the only chicken soup I've ever had in Georgia so far. So she tells the story that she sort of pushed her family, nudged her family back into Judaism that came deep from her own heart. And so they decided to really create a Jewish home. And the father, later on, of Ilona, becomes very interested in the work that's being done in Chabad. And he goes and he actually becomes the, the chief of staff of the Chabad rabbi. He runs his office. And he spends 7 years there. Gets very deep Jewish knowledge, yet it's never quite right for him. And so he wandered off. And then, when we gathered people, and this last trip, which was just a few weeks ago, he joined us. And he said to me, by the way, he's a musician. He plays in one of the orchestras of Tbilisi. And he said the following: you started teaching. I couldn't understand the words, but I definitely understood the melody. And your melody is my melody. And then we spent Shabbat singing together. We're also praying for his health tonight as well. So Ilona is one of 11 adults between the ages of 20 and 30-something, maybe touching even the 40s, who have never had a bar bat mitzvah in their lives. And that's what I offered. I said, how about we do, when we dedicate the synagogue, the next day let's have a bat mitzvah. That for you is sort of course, or wonderful, or of course we do it, whatever one it is, okay? But there, 2,600 years, there's never been a woman who's read Torah in a synagogue. So when you come and join us in May, you will witness the first women ever publicly to chant Torah. And who's teaching them? You are. So we have... Yofi. So we have 5 or 6 tutors from here, from Temple Ner Tamid, who have that love sandwich going already. I know sometimes it's hard. I don't know if they've answered all your calls. Also for me, sometimes they don't answer my calls. And I put out the email. I'm very worried. And then somehow things happen. It sort of feels like Israel. It's Georgia, though. So there's this connection happening. And I heard that some of them also called their tutors to tell them what's going on now with the demonstrations that were in the streets. And our people were right there in the middle of the demonstration, right? For liberal rights and liberal values. And of course, Judaism is part of that. And so we are creating this gem, this unique moment in Jewish history. And by collecting Judaica here and sending it there, and maybe one day also receiving. We had this idea, but it didn't happen because it's too soon, but it will happen. Can I share the idea? We know that there's a Seder, right? That you do here a Seder. And we thought, wouldn't it be wonderful if our members in Georgia drew and painted and did artwork that then would be incorporated here in the Seder that you have as a communal Seder. So it's a give and take, it's a receiving, and it's a connection. That will happen one day, or something like it. B'Shana Haba B'Yerushalayim, or in the connection. And I just want to end with one more story, because this fledgling community is alive and is searching and has some isolation, because the surrounding Jewish communities, the few that are there, don't really understand it, and let's leave it at that, don't really understand it. The non-Jews around definitely are sort of bewildered by all of this, so there's a double isolation. But with Temple Ner Tamid and other communities like this around the world, reaching out to them, even before there's a full community, before the synagogue's fully established, there is a connection. And there are Jews who care and are creating that peoplehood of Jewish people. The peoplehood. That's what we're doing. And we care not only for ourselves, even now. The Peace Synagogue in the Peace Cathedral was part of an event, an ecumenical service, marking a year of the aggression against Ukraine. And there we were, in the church, Jews and Muslims and Christians, an imam, myself the rabbi, and the bishop, all giving prayer. And all sharing that moment that there are people in need. And in the background, there was an exhibition of Ukrainian children's artwork. Ukrainian refugees, children who made it into Georgia to safety, and the Peace Cathedral is offering them refuge and is also teaching them all kinds of skills. And the artwork was just so powerful. I went up to a little girl who was looking a little sad, and I said to her, "Would you like me to take one of your paintings to America?" She looked at me. She was 8 years old. And first of all, we didn't quite communicate in the same language, but America somehow makes it across the language barrier. And she lit up. And I called over someone to translate for us. By the way, it's not just someone, it's the first female bishop in Georgia, whose name is Rusudan. And she's, of course, part of the team, and you will meet her as well. So she translates. And she calls over another two girls, a 7-year-old and a 10-year-old. Their artwork is right outside the synagogue, on the right. And I said, I'm going to bring this to people who care, and I'm going to help you. And we're going to ask you, whoever wants to be in partnership and receive that painting, the resource that you give goes directly to them. And the resource that they give in their artwork goes directly to you. Already we're doing tzedek. Already we're doing acts of loving kindness and receiving them through you. Shabbat Shalom.
Thank you. We're going to move now to the concluding section of our service. We're on page 282 as we rise for Aleinu.
Aleinu l'shabeach l'adon hakol, l'teit gedula liotzer breshit, shelo asanu kigoyei haratzot, velo samanu kamishpachot adama. Shelo sam chelkeinu kahem, v'gor aleinu kechol hamonam, v'anachnu korim, u'mishtachavim u'modim, lifnei melech malchei hamlachim, hakadosh baruch hu. V'nemar v'haya Adonai lemelech al kol haaretz bayom hahu yeh Adonai echad u'shemo echad.
Please be seated. Our thoughts now turn to those we have loved and who we have lost. As I call the name of your loved one, I'll invite you to rise and remain standing as I recite the rest of the names on our list. This Shabbat, we recall the following individuals: Jack Abrahams, Rudolph Adler, Alfred Assion, Blanche Bedrin, Mickey Bogan, Leah Busin, Prue Chelwick, Isidore Chast-Nopel, George Dinnerstein, David Dobrin, Barry Edelman, Belle Ehrlich, Murray Gottesman, Edward Green, Gladys Green, Samuel Greenfield, Joseph Gross, Blanca Gross-Manova, Leonard Grotti, Madeline Gutterman, Rhoda Hoftel, William Heimowitz, Abraham Hendler, Irving Hertzberg, Rini Jacobson, Samuel Kaiserman, Mara Kochba, Seymour Krevlin, Saul Crone, Richard Lasday, Tess Malloy, Ida Mandel, Maxine Martin, Benjamin Minsky, Richard Nealis, Bernard Novak, Elias Olivas Melendez, Elidia Piscina, Irving Portnoff, Morton Raymond, Thomas Sadler, Ruth Saperstein, Lillian Schumann, Joan Shapiro, Dora Sherman, Lena Slater, Philip Stein, Harold Sterling, Mark Sutton Smith, Adrian Clem Taylor, Ernest Tuck. And those who are in their Shiva and Shloshim periods of mourning, Paul Stenke, father of David Stenke, and Beth Owens, mother of Steph Lurie. In addition, I'll invite anyone who is observing a yard site that wasn't on this list, or anyone who is within their 1 year period of mourning, to rise and share the name of your loved one who you're thinking about. Max Renteria. We rise together. Page 294. Yitgadal v'yitgadash shemei Rabbah. B'yamad divrach hirotei b'yam nechma chutei. B'chai echon u'v'yam echon u'b'chai etachol Beit Yisrael. Ba'agala u'v'zman karib v'imru amin. Yehei shemei Rabbah m'barach le'olam olmei olmaya. Yiparach v'yishtabach v'yipar v'yitnamam v'yitnaseh. V'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shemei dekudesha b'rechu. Le'elam min kol birchata v'shirata. Tushbachata v'nechamata. Damiram b'yama b'imru amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya. V'chayima alena ve'arko Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'romav. Huyaseh shalom. Alena ve'arko Yisrael v'imru amen. Please be seated. So just a few announcements before we close our service. The first actually is that I'm looking around and I'm seeing some of our alumni, people who grew up in our congregation here tonight. And so I just want to welcome you and say
Shouting out
it's
to the
wonderful to have you
teens.
back in town and with us.
Yay!
Tomorrow morning, we've got a number of things going on. We've got Torah study at 8:30 in the morning. We've got our Wake Up Shabbat at 9 a.m. At 10 a.m., we have our casual minyan, and that actually is going to include a second teaching by Rabbi Ben Horin, and so we're excited to have you there. So make sure if you want to hear him,
And led by Rick
come at 10
Abrams,
a.m.
yeah.
But you also have other choices for services as well. So we happen to have what's called a stacked double, which means 2 back-to-back services. And so Avery and Olive will both become Benot Mitzvah, one at 9 a.m., one at 11 a.m., and we're excited to be able to celebrate with you. Lest you thought I got away with one less sermon this weekend.
Indeed.
And in addition to that, just a number of other wonderful things going on in our community. The first plug that I want to give is for the weekend of the 25th, 26th, which has snuck up on us. It is next weekend, in fact. And so what that is, on the 25th, we have our big dinner celebration for Ronnie Pressman, who is now here for 13 years as a wonderful member of our community, wonderful teacher in our community. And so we're going to celebrate her that night. And if you haven't been paying attention, I don't know how you could miss it because there's so many emails about it. We commissioned a new Torah for Ronnie's 13th year, and so we are going to dedicate that Torah with a ceremony the next morning at 11:30 a.m. It's called a Siyum ceremony, and we are going to take the rest of our Torahs out, read from all our Torahs, and then put that Torah officially back in for the first time when we scribe the last letters in that Torah and finish the writing of it. And so
It's like a really special
it's going to be a
thing.
really cool
It's
thing.
not a normal thing.
Yeah.
You should come to that.
In addition to that, Women's Seder. So
Indeed. On Thursday evening, our annual Women's Seder, it's at 7 p.m. Technically, you can't register anymore. But if you just forgot and you need to come, we want you there. So email me.
if you are in the mood for a Seder that you can still register for, though, we have our second night Seder, which happens on the second night of Passover. And we do it every year, and I'll be leading this year. And if you need a place to go, or even if you have a place to go but would rather come here, we would love to see you. We make it intergenerational. Bring kids, don't bring kids. We figure out a way to kind of serve everyone for that.
I
Yes.
wanted to just make one more mention, which is all year since last summer, we have been experimenting with something we're calling deep listening support and practice. Small groups of people in community working to strengthen their ability to listen to one another. Really deeply Jewish value, and also something that's been extremely transformative for the people that have been part of it. We meaning Karen Frank, our congregational nurse, and I are doing another orientation for maybe some of you who are interested in being placed in one of these small communities, these small learning communities of deep listening practice. It is on March 30th. It is in the E-Garret. Read it. Get in touch.
Yes, and apropos of Rabbi Ben-Chorin's amazing teaching
And work.
a couple quick things. The first is, of course, if you want to get involved in that, come talk to him, come talk to the cantor.
Please.
We would love to figure out a way, whether you want to come to Georgia with the cantor or whether you want to just, give ritual supplies from afar or be part of.
We're going to have some creative experience in April. We're going to make journals and do some other really cool stuff if that's your thing.
Perfect. Yes.
As gifts.
And in the spirit of what Rabbi Ben-Chorin talked about, two other things. The first is that we are, for the second year in a row, going to break Passover with a Muslim community that we have a very close relationship with, Peace Island Institute. And I think it's going to be the last year for like a probably generation that we are going to be able to break Passover while Ramadan is going on. And so they're going to be having the Ramadan break fast at the
'cause of the
same
time
time
of
as
year.
we are having our Passover break. And maybe I'm wrong, maybe next year is the last one, but it's, the calendars move around in such a way that I think this is it. So hopefully you'll join. We're going to have a really great dinner. We'll make sure to have bread as part of that dinner. So it's the last night, and by last night, because I know there's a debate on what the last night of Passover is, I'm talking the 8th, like after the 8th day of Passover night. So you may end up breaking it a day early if you go by the Reform calendar. If you do, still come anyways. We would love for you to really make a bond.
Yeah.
And on your way out, make sure to look at those 3 pieces of art, which are in the casing over there. But I will also say, you might have noticed as you walked in a lot of paper cranes on the wall. I want to make special mention of that because after the firebombing, at this point, almost 6 weeks ago, we got this amazing gift from the AAPI community, the Asian American Pacific Islander community, which reached out to more than a dozen organizations in the general Montclair area, and they all made over 1,000 paper cranes for us, hung them on those strings, and it's up there as an art exhibit. And it just shows the best of what an interfaith community can be.
Yeah.
And so apropos of the amazing teaching, I want to make sure you know that that's why that's there, because it's really wonderful.
It's also so pretty.
Yes.
Yeah, it's stunning. So I asked Rabbi Golan to teach us something that he has taught the community in Tbilisi to end our tefillah tonight.
One last time, everyone together.
Di
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
Make sure to meet someone new. And Oneg is going to be right into the back in the other room. You can enter through those doors if you want. Just make sure to drop your prayer books off in the meantime. Shabbat
And
shalom.
come
everyone.
and say hello to Rabbi Ben Chorin and ask him questions.